Hello, Deep Mindfulness Collective. This right here, right now, is the Joy of Being Alive stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. And folks, you guessed it, today is Freaky Friday. It is a freestyle fun ride through the danger zone. Very happy everyone's here. Very happy we get to practice together. A little unhappy I forgot to turn off the air purifier because it's making a whirring sound in the background. I'm going to fix that real quick. But as we begin here, I want to know where you are. Where on earth are you? First and foremost. Second, hey, see you here. She's such a stubborn. Come on. Come say hi. Oops, this is the dog. This is still the dog. Oh, what's up? What's hurting? I don't know why she's whining. She should be happy. What's wrong? Anyway, this is the dog. She's still the dog. She's very sweet. And she's gone. I gotta turn the air conditioner off. 1 sec. 1 sec, folks. I'll be right back with you. I'm right here. Come on. Come on, Sheila. Oh. Good girl. Okay. We're back, folks. Welcome, folks. Gene from Brooklyn. Rory from Kingston. 613 from California checking in. Welcome. Great to have you here. Let's see as we begin to slide our way in here. From the kitchen on the second floor, 2020 joining us. I wish I could remember where everyone was from, because I'm like, 2020, you're from, and then I forget. So, folks, very excited to be here for you today. Be with you here today. Be with you here? I'm working on grammar. I was just racing outside with Sela because she needed to pee before we began. It's a little bit of a race. However, what that means is she's all amped up, and that means we can turn on, you guessed it, the doggy cam. Sela, come Okay, so folks, as we're watching the doggy cam here, it is Freestyle Friday, and I wanted to let you know, if you don't know already, that we make up a meditation, we develop a meditation, or do a meditation based on your needs, your interest, that kind of thing. So please feel free to drop me what's going on in your practice. What's interesting? What have you been exploring? Often I find that what people pick is something that they're interested in but they've never done, which is cool. You can do that. And we can also do things if you're having a specific challenge or specific difficulty. I can either figure out a practice that would fit for that, or I can use a practice that I already know of that will fit for that. So what would, or anything you'd like to develop in your practice? Okay, let's see. 613 is my area code, and let's see. Nick says, "Hi from the old Karlstad office, 4th floor, 5th office from the left, building 21." See, this is great. This is the kind of detail it's helpful to know. Although, don't give any more information, because I feel like people will show up at your work and be like, "Hey, I'm from the stream." Exactly. Don't stalk me, weirdos. I usually when people start chat in like a new stream, it'll have like a set of rules, and like I'm sure you guys have noticed when you start the chat here the first time, it just says be cool. I'm not sure what other rules I need. There was a couple of people who came on and tried to be like edgelords and say like silly Nazi crap and whatever, but it was pretty lame, pretty dead meme. But so folks, what kind of meditation do you want to do? What challenges you're facing in your life? We got through the holiday round 1. I've heard this statistic before, but as far as people in recovery, more people lose their sobriety in the months between Thanksgiving and New Year's than the rest of the year combined. That sounds like one of those unqualified statistics, but it was believable. It's one of those believable unqualified statistics. I've been trying to realize the over there is really right here. Okay, so that's actually interesting. So the sense that outside is actually, there is no outside, or the sense that the that which seems distant or difficult or remote is actually not remote. Okay, see, come on, check. Nice. Okay, so what else? Anything else folks want to dig into, work on as we begin here? What else is coming up for people in their practice? I know we got some new visitors here, people who we haven't chatted with before, some folks joining us I haven't seen before. So tell me, if you can, if you feel the desire, tell me what kind of stuff you want to work on in your meditation. Challenges in your life. I think one of the challenges, this is one of the big things that I'm trying to like get the world to see, is that meditation is not just a stress reducer. That's really not what its sort of function is. It's really like a life-changing, I'm trying to fix my mustache. I've noticed this little blonde spurt here recently, and I'm trying to figure out what's up with that. It's not just like a stress reducer, it is a life changer. So any aspect of life that we want to improve on or explore or anything like that. Okay, let's see. Exalted says, do you do any self-inquiry? Yes. Do you think it's a good to do that sometimes? Absolutely. And self-inquiry as a meditation is good. Self-inquiry as like a writing process can be really excellent. Are there representations of ourselves? Are we just representations of ourselves? Okay, so just let's, I can answer that. Nick says, sneaky subjective experience trying to pose as objective stuff. Okay, this is all good. Oh, great. I don't know why I missed some of these. I've been enjoying the idea of saying, may you be peaceful to everything. Okay, great. So we have tons of stuff here. Let me go back and make sure I'm catching everything. The sense that over there is actually right here. Right, the mind producing a sense of inside and outside, a sense that there is a distance to be traveled. One way I like to look at this, because I talk to people who like have like belief in God and stuff like that, and I think it's nice to think in those terms sometimes. I think it's helpful for mind flexibility. I'm like, what is this thing? Oh, it's a cardboard box from an IKEA thing I'm putting together. So basically this whole idea that like you have to reach out to pray to a God, that there's something out there versus that it's just all of our experience. So that's a big thing in in like in places where people might pray, is like, is there an outside? So then Jean says, may you be peaceful to everything. So no matter what arises, we're cycling that back into the practice and wishing it peace. The sneaky subjective sense that things are objective, that things are actually objective. This is actually similar to what 613 is saying. Let's see, do you ever do self-inquiry? There is a way you could form a self-inquiry practice out of those above questions. Are we representatives of ourselves? So I'll answer the last one. Depends how you define self. Are we just representations of ourself? So these all tie together quite a bit. I'm just trying to think of what's the through line here. So this idea that subjective experiences are objective, right? That's what we do when we're talking about like representations of self. So I've recently been into this idea that comes a little bit from Hinduism, a little bit from Buddhism, but this idea that the what's with you? She's always so like hungry for the toy. Now she doesn't want it. That's fine. We'll just put you on the doggy cam and you can just chill out here. She might even sleep next to us while we meditate here. So you want a chew toy, little lady? Here's a chew toy. See, lay down. She's not listening. She thinks she already is down. See that down? Come on. See that down? Good girl. Good down. Yeah, look at her go. Look at her use those hands like a smart little doggy. That's supposed to be a sign of intelligence. When she uses her hands, she's like pawing it together. Okay, so are we just representations of ourselves? So self is not an object. Self is actually a verb or an experience that we overlay on top of experiences. When you say are we, so it gets tricky with language. It's a little bit you only get this toy when you're sitting right on camera like a good little Instagram doggy. See that down? Yes, good doggy. Good doggy. There we go. So beep pop pop is so what we're talking about here is the mind's tendency to turn things into objects, and that as an inquiry process. The peaceful part might be a little bit missed, but okay. So here's the meditation we're going to build. We're going to do an inquiry practice, which honestly, Exalted, just so you know, most insight practice is some form of an inquiry practice, in part because we're just asking, like, is this the sensation I'm feeling? Is it? And often an inquiry practice uses some kind of phrase or word, but just by inclining the mind in the shape of a question, we're doing the same thing. It's the same kind of practice. So okay, one more comment here. I was thinking maybe self-inquiry could trigger something for me that's been difficult to do gradually, kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid. Well, just remember, like right now, if you look, like pick a color, you can look at this, where I can't tell where I'm pointing here. This color is red, or pick some color in your room, and the mind will tell you very quickly, like, yes, this is red, or this is this tone of red, or whatever. It's in the red range, or whatever we want to call it. So here's another piece of red fabric, or something. So, well, there's a lot of similar colors here. I didn't realize that. So, but let the mind ask that as a question, actually. And this seems like not self-inquiry, but trust me, we'll get there. But rather than making it as a statement, make it as a question. So, is this actually red? Am I actually totally confused? Maybe is this actually purple or blue? Or is this black? Are my eyes even open? Is this the experience of seeing? Am I sure this is the experience of seeing? And that's more or less what insight practice is. Now, when we do a self-inquiry practice, there's an implication by description that we're applying it back towards the experience of self. So I think what we want to do here is, okay, ideally if I could wave a wand, everyone would already know how to observe noun experiences and recognize that they're actually verbs. So I think because today is Freaky Friday, we're going to do a little bit of a warm-up, and then we'll go into the practice. Many people have seen me do this exercise before, but this is a very significant exercise, and you could do it a million times and it would still be very, very rich. So this is our desolidifying objects exercise. So what I want you to do is pick an object in the room or wherever, right? This is pretty objecty. There's no real confusion here. This is definitely what it is. It's a bell or something like that, but it's an object. There's no confusion, right? And so pick something in your space and just notice that it is an object. That is the experience of an object. Look at it. Okay, yep, that's an object. Kind of soak into its objectiness, its sort of solidity, its existence as a thing. It's a noun. Okay, now jump to another thing. We're starting the meditation, but this is our warm-up. Jump to another thing. Notice how much of a thing it is, how much of an object. Okay, there is an object. There it is. If you've done this practice before, don't let the mind tell you you've done it before. Just do it again. Do it and let it be new. So, okay, that's definitely an object. Got it. Very solid. Next object. Okay, yeah, very solid. No question, this is an object like all these other objects. Go ahead and just bounce around and notice how objecty all these different objects in your space are. There's an object, and it's very solid. And the mind tells us that these are continuous objects. These never really change. There's an object, etc. Just keep on doing this, noticing how, yeah, this is not a very special thing. My room is surrounded by objects. Okay, there's an object. Yeah, got it. Okay, great. I was gonna jump to the next thing, but I actually want to slow down a little bit. So noticing objects around our space and noticing how palpably objective they feel. It's not like a trick question. Yep. In a way, this is the opposite of an inquiry practice. We're sort of letting the mind do what it does, which is state that things are quite solid. That's an object. Object. In fact, we could even go around and object by object, notice every little thing. Lots of objects here, lots of objects. Got it. And what we're going to do now, as we've been bouncing around to notice objects, what I want you to do is pick any one particular object, soak in and notice how objecty it is. I'm looking at the doggy cam over here, actually. But pick an object. Probably not on the screen because it's a little confusing for the mind. Okay, that's definitely an object, right? Now, when you shift in a moment, stay with this one, but in a moment you're going to shift to another one. And I want you to see what happens to the object you're currently holding. Can it stay as objecty? Can it hold that object nature, that object feeling, that solidity when you look at the next object? Noticing that this new object basically takes its place, and the other object is sort of fuzzier. This new object is very solid, visually solid, but there's also this sense of it being like a thing. It is very much a thing. And now the last one might be half fuzzy, but what about the other dozen things you looked at before? Those are all very they're kind of like a fog of different things. Now if you zoom back to any other object that you looked at before, it'll re-objectify. It'll re-solidify. So notice that each time you look at a new object, it becomes very solid experientially. Yes, that's an object, but the other ones just sort of fade away. They're sort of a vague memory. The mind holds them as maybe an image, but the image is, you can't hold both basically at the same time. The mind, some people will say that the mind cannot hold two objects at once. It can turn them into one object, but it cannot hold two. So just notice that in order for this to be an object, to feel like a thing, the other ones kind of fade away. They become less solid. The more objecty this is, the less objecty other things become. This is a very important feature of the mind. This is actually quite significant for, the path of awakening, is to recognize this. Okay. So this is a very important question, and folks who aren't having a trouble with this, who this is working perfectly for you, I want you to just keep going, because it's a skill. It's not just like an aha fact. Keep doing this. Keep noticing things turn solid, and they become less solid as we look at the next thing, and the object quality of them sort of goes away. Let's frame here so you can make sure to have your nice view of doggo, if we can, without making the camera fall. Nah, alright, it's fine for now. So, folks who keep going, keep practicing in that way. Anyone confused by what we just did or does not understand precisely what we just did, I want to stay in very simple terms so we can keep the practice going. Write me a little letter if you don't understand what just happened or what we're doing, or I don't quite get what you mean, or I wasn't able to detect that. Yeah. If everyone's good to go, then we can start the formal practice. But if not, I want to make sure that folks are on the same page, that we're all good here. Okay. Reminds me of some video game virtual reality, like how it renders what's relevant. Yeah, at each moment. Doggy cam needs adjusting. Yes, that is exactly what's happening. So I've mentioned this before as a metaphor. Like a video game or virtual reality, the mind will only render what's right in front of us, and it will tell us, just like a video game does, the whole world is real. It's continuous. And it only needs to render what's right in front of us. This is the same thing with the experience of the object of self, me. Every time we check back, I seem to be there. So, but notice the self is just another object. So notice how solid the self feels. Sometimes it feels solid or not. Just, okay, this is me. And then go to another object and notice you have to flip back and forth or let the self experience collapse. Exalted says, when you say notice the other objects become less solid, my attention bounces to the other objects in my peripheral vision, and they are solid too. But notice that it has to bounce. It has to jump. It cannot stay. It cannot be like really hard, like look what an object this is. Like the more we merge with this, the other ones just fade back, and the mind can jump pretty quickly, but there is a gap. It's like a sort of fuzzy gap. If you pick any particular object and really sort of zoom into it and really like, okay, notice it's an object. Notice that it's like everything else is much fuzzier, much less stable in that way. So that's the general breakdown suggestion there. Okay, so with that, let's jump into actual practice here. I want to try something here. I realize I have this doggy cam just sitting here resting, but I have like a full-on little tripod set up that would make this. Oh, let's do it over here. That would make this a very highly sophisticated doggy cam if we just put the tripod in place. Okay. Okay, we can get pretty precise with this sucker. Okay. Look at that advanced doggy cam. Oh yeah. Look at that. Look how precise that is. Okay. So folks, finding that nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. I think I'm going to put away the noisy dog toy. And maybe I'll even turn off the dog cam. Okay, so find that nice comfortable position. Yeah, so the effect is not very vivid, it's very subtle, and that's what we're looking for. So okay, so find a nice comfortable position. Let's just start this, let's get this party started. We're going to be still for the entire duration, so find a way to hold the body still. If you need to move, again, you hear me say this every time, but you want to be watching for overwhelm. If the system gets to a level 3 out of 10, you want to immediately make some adjustment, move slowly. What does the body need? Maybe it needs a little shake, or maybe it just needs a tiny little adjustment. Whatever you need, make sure to make that adjustment. Be aware ahead of time of any overwhelm arising, but otherwise we're going to stay entirely still. And I feel good about this meditation. This is going to be a good one. I know that seems like weird to say about my own meditation, but I'm feeling this one. Unlike the others, where I think I just can tell ahead of time they're just terrible. I'm just kidding. Okay, So when you're ready, find that nice, comfortable position. And we will begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths, just feeling the body rise and fall. Each time we arrive at a meditation, we arrive with the momentum of all the previous moments. So as we come into this practice, noticing if the mind is moving quickly, if it's stable, if the mind is moving slowly or is foggy. And feeling the excuse me. And feeling the rising and falling of the body as the breath comes and goes on its own. No need to control it. And physically relaxing the body beyond what we can physically feel. And for a few moments, we're simply going to watch the experience of the body breathing. If we're able to watch the breath all throughout the body, we can do this. If not, just picking some place that's obvious, easy, the rising and falling of the abdomen, or breath at the tip of the nose, rising and falling of the shoulders. If we can't detect the breath, just letting one hand rest on the belly as the breath comes and goes. And as we do this, simply recognizing this simple truth that the breath is a process. It is something that is ongoing and unfolding. In order to make sense of the world, the mind will often turn experiences into things. Into tiny objects, and then not pay attention as they dissolve and disappear, because it's moved on to create another little object. And the breath is helpful here because it's so clearly a process. It's so clearly a set of sensations that continues to unfold. But the mind will still produce objects. It may suddenly think of the lungs or the nose, and again consider these to be things, objects. But aside from our mind, there's no real experience of these. The experience is just the sensation. Now we're going to make a slight shift. For a moment, we're going to pretend that we're not doing any kind of meditation. We're not trying to notice or observe or be aware. Imagine we're just sitting as we do throughout our day, and simply observe what occurs. The mind might have a sense of space, a sense of a body. The mind might think of plans or things that may arise throughout the day. The mind may notice sensations and decide it likes or dislikes these sensations. And almost universally, whenever we get distracted or pulled away, we're pulled away by a thought, a sensation, a sound. And in this case, the mind is often turning these into an object, something that is solid, something we could push away if we don't like it, we could reach for if we do like it. the sense of a solid body that is an object of ownership as my body. My home, my environment, my meditation. Each of these requires the mind to produce an object. So what we're going to do is, anytime we detect any sensation of any kind, we're going to, in the mind, ask this question: is this solid? Is this continuous? We know that the term warm or the term falling, these are not objects, these are processes or descriptors. But something like an arm, this seems very solid to the mind. So for a moment, let's tune into just the arm. And ask, is this solid? Is this continuous? The mind will either answer yes, no, or I don't know. If the answer is no, then attending to the process nature of the experience. If the answer is yes, it is solid, staying with that solidity. If it's solid, it needs to be very solid, very consistent. It can't be moving or shifting or percolating, bubbling. It can't be simply made out of forces of expansion or contraction, pressures. If we don't know, we can simply ask again, because of course this will change over time. If we'd like to abbreviate the words we use in our mind, we can say, is this a noun? Or is this an object? Not assuming we know the answer, letting the mind answer on its own. What does it default at? Not what do we think it is. At first glance, my mind sees the body as an object. It is a thing. But if I observe this thingness, this sense of solidity, even the sense itself is shifting and moving. The sensations that make it up are shifting and moving. But again, the mind comes back and says, this is an object. So we're simply showing it over and over. letting the mind drift to any experience, checking in to see, is this an object or noun? And then staying with that experience, noticing if it's shifting or changing, if it's dynamic in any way. Seeing if it's truly an object or if it's simply the mind producing an overlay. Noticing that what was an object a moment ago may suddenly seem like a process or a verb. What was a verb a moment ago may be suddenly tagged by the mind as a solid object. And we can simplify the language down to the mind simply saying noun, followed by a question mark, or verb, followed by a question mark. Or if we gain enough momentum, we can let go of any mental labeling or questioning. Simply following this process. And we can broaden this. Is there anything at all in our experience that is solid? Can we find anything? Including the self or the observer. Noticing if anything changes to any of these objects, if we include more material, if we open awareness to include the surrounding sense data. Not letting our understanding cloud our perception. Of course, the mind will make things experienced as solid. This is natural. It's nature. using a mind to divide the world, to make sense of it. And so recognizing that the noun making part of the mind itself is a process. We usually miss this process, the mind gathering data, making a package out of it, calling it an arm or a self, or the room that we're in. But if we can watch either it forming or it deforming and breaking down as it makes another object, or as we allow the mind to include more sense data, as we watch the mind arrange and package generously, trying to slice the world up to make it comfortable and sensible for us. And for a moment, having a bit of gratitude for this part of the mind which arranges and parses the world. Its drive to keep us oriented, safe, to help us understand or think we understand the world. We can simply say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for producing a sense of solidity, thank you. Thank you. Thanking the seeming noun experiences in this moment. These nouns are sometimes called mind objects. So simply saying thank you to these formations and the part of the mind that creates them. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness, allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes. And as we eventually allow the eyes to rest on a single point, noticing again the mind creating solidity, creating a world of objects, visual continuity. being thankful. Thank you for this sense of order. Thank you for this sense that there is a solid self that can interact with the solid world in its own limited way. It's quite elegant. And whether the mind experiences this moment as very solid or as a process, just allowing that, knowing this is natural. And letting this particular moment be the great teacher that shows us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Okay. So what was that experience like? What happened? And what do you like now? So as we're sitting here interacting, I think the challenge is, so Rory and a few other people here have been in my Progressive Shinsight class, and we go into this in great detail, and we spend like months working on this particular thing in general. So this feels particularly abstract, or like, was it a noun? I don't know. Like a lot of mental layering on top of the experience. That's not surprising because it's introducing quite a bit of material. But as you're experiencing the world now, just noticing the sort of any solid or noun-like or object-like experiences, and recognizing, if you can, that this is a process. The mind produces this sort of sense of solidity, and you can see the cracks, basically. It's like, oh, this is very solid. It's just like this. I mean, we know these experiences when we have distortions within them. So in New York, there's this classic thing of getting out of the subway and you're looking around and suddenly you see a landmark and the whole map like spins around and you're like, whoosh, and you're suddenly like, oh, here I am. That's the mind very quickly remapping everything, re-solidifying everything based on the map that we've created. Or we see something out of the corner of our eye and it's not actually what it is, and we look and we realize like it's not a cat, it's like a piece of fabric or something. So these are moments, and often people are like, that was so weird. These are moments when the objective sort of illusion of the mind breaks down. This is part of why, optical illusion seems so cool. This is part of why, like, all these different things, the optical illusion where you look at something spinning and then you look at like everything else afterwards. In fact, let's watch one of those videos. I think that'd be fun. Oh, I'm waking up the dog by accident. I accidentally wore jeans today to the stream, so I'm like, my legs are like, amazingly didn't fall asleep. But okay, so folks, what was that experience like? What happened, and what do you like now? I'm going to open up the audio stream here if you want to jump in. Maybe I want to, no, we got to test Discord because that wasn't working and blah, blah, blah. So let's go to Zoom. It's really hard to get people to go onto a different platform. Like if they had a way to talk in Twitch, I think everyone would use it. I think people would jump on and just chit chat and like whatever, but they don't. So, the leg. Okay, now it's asleep. Now it's realizing it's asleep. So if anyone wants to jump on Zoom, let me know and I will open it up. Exalted says, I started feeling kind of hollow inside. Don't know any other way to explain it. Yeah, so you can notice this now. So notice that in your torso especially, this is often the case, we notice certain sensations. You can feel sensations in your torso, I'm sure, but it's not actually solid all the way through experientially. There's a part here that has a lot of sensation, a part here that has a bunch of sensation, and then there's something like back here that has a lot of sensation, but between those two, it's often like there's no sensation there, or we can't detect it, or it's very subtle, or this kind of thing. And those internally can often feel like there's just space. Yeah, so that's not uncommon. It's actually a nice insight to notice that there's actually a sense of space in our experience. Okay, so so as folks are beginning to type their thing in here, I want to find one of these things. Okay, let's go to YouTube. I don't know why it starts playing a video right away, but it does. Welcome, folks. That's me talking to me. Oh, P.S. For whatever reason, the voice reading thing is coming up as like tripled and doubled. Let me fix that, because I keep... let me try to get the voice reading thing to read, and it keeps actually... let me see something here. I'm going to do a little sound check, so forgive me. I'm just playing a video from our stream. I think it's a stream... no, sorry. This is from a private class. So I'm not going to play that. Okay, I'm going to play a comedy video, which is one of my favorite comedians online. His name is Ryan George, and this is a video called "The First Person to Ever Be a King." I'm just playing this literally to check the audio, just so you know what's playing here.
This video is sponsored by Raycon. More about them at the end of the sketch. Hi there, hello. Hi. So listen, good news, I have a new hat, and I think you'll agree it's very pointy. Yeah, it's definitely one of the pointiest hats I've seen, for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty great hat, I like it a lot, and also I'm in charge of everything now. What? In charge of what? Just, just all of it. What are you talking about? Like, for example...
Okay, I was just checking the sound. So, real quick, I'm going to have the voice reader thing read something. This is just a comment from that video. Before the voice reader thing was reading and it sounded like a robot-y because it was phased, two voices were reading it. Tell me if this sounds like a single voice now for you, because it sounded like a single voice for me, but not for you guys.
Well, King Ryan's son definitely has the whole royal inbred thing going on.
So how did that sound? Let me know how that sounded. I want to know. Because I want to make sure that it's not, it sounded so weird before. So, I wanted to find that video. So, folks, hit me good single voice, because before it was hitting with a multi-voice thing going on. Okay, here's the beep bop. I want to find that video. Finding video. You guys write me your reports. Do your thing. Okay. Oh, great. Perfect. Okay, this is music. I don't know why. Okay, great. We're going to watch this. I want to watch this vid for optical illusion purposes. Just to show us how, like, not solid our actual senses actually are. I'm sure everyone's done this one before. We'll give it a try. Okay, let's set this up in the streaming software. Let's see, close outro corner. No, that's not what I want. Nope. There we go. Okay, let's get this going. I don't know if this will work. How's that? Oh, come on. No? Okay. I'm going to see how we... Oh, I know how to make this work. Sorry, I figured it out. Yep. Okay. There we go. There we go. One sec, folks. I'm just setting something up so we can watch together. Okay. As you're doing this, okay, here we're going to switch real quick. We're going to switch to an optical illusion. If anyone gets weird headaches or whatever from optical illusion, just, maybe not do this. But we're going to take 30 seconds or maybe 15 seconds and stare into this into the middle of this dot. This is the instructions. You're going to have a dot, stare into the middle of the dot, and we'll take 15 seconds. And then we'll go from there. Make sure the video is not going to end suddenly. Go back. Okay. Here we go. Ready, folks? Stare into the middle of this dot. Here we go. You can either zoom way in, or you can open up awareness and take in the whole visual field. At some point, at least for me, it kind of becomes a little bit of like a white. It like all merges together a little bit. Ten more seconds. And stay looking at the center of this dot for now, unless it's fully giving you a headache. It's like bending my eyes a little bit. But in a moment, we're just going to look. We're going to jump and look at some object in the space that we're in. Just stay with it, and then when I tell you, we're going to jump over and look at an object in the room. Okay, so part of the reason we're doing this is to show that what we typically experience as a very solid sense of the world, sense of self, is actually in large part the mind producing this. Okay, so when I want to have us all do this together. So when I get to, I'll count down, and when I get to the bottom, we're going to jump and look at an object. So 3, 2, 1, look. Pretty cool. It's actually kind of one of the closest versions of like what happens when you take hallucinogens, like what a lot of things look like. They're just sort of breathy and movie in this way. So hopefully that was fun. Hopefully that had an effect visually. Hopefully it actually worked. Yeah, tell me what the effect was. Hopefully it didn't give anyone a seizure. That is a very good example of the things that seem like again, we're talking about perception. We're not talking about the material world, but perceptually, the mind produces all this sense of solidity around us, and that is just not perceptually accurate. It is actually, the things disappear when we look away. The mind is just holding them. It's like very strange in this way. Okay, why is this relevant? I have this one student who's always like, well, what does that matter? Like, how's it gonna affect my life? It's a good question. Sometimes I don't even answer that. I'm just so interested in this stuff. I'm just like, but it impacts my life. Why do I need to explain why? Anyway, okay, so here we go. Jean says,
I stopped beating myself up a while ago for getting distracted, but I found something that I'd like to continue. I somehow feel even less bothered by noticing distractions and have the attitude, whatever. I'll just keep practicing. This makes me feel less like I'm failing and also makes me want to practice more. I generally enjoyed this meditation. I fidgeted a lot during the first part, but by the end my mind and vision felt super focused.
Okay, so I want to give Jean a little homework. So Jean, we work one-on-one, so I know your practice. I want to hear, it doesn't have to be long, 2 sentences, really, you included some details, but phenomenologically, what was the experience? What occurred experientially? Maybe think at the point where you were the most concentrated and describe everything around that. How did it lead into it? What was the detail of the sensation? What occurred? What changed? These kind of things. I want a phenomenological description of what happened. I'm trying to get you to be able to do that easily. I want that to be an easy part of your practice. So I'm putting you on the spot. Airplane John says, welcome John, it's good to see you here from Queens. John says,
I started out not even wanting to meditate, but the freedom of just letting all my feelings be completely changed my mood, reminding me of how my suffering is self-generated.
Yeah, that's actually a good point as to why this is relevant. I mean, a lot of our suffering is caused by the mind making things objects and then having a war of objects. You know, it's very hard to have a battle when everyone's floating in space. You know, I watched, what is it called, Guardians of the Galaxy last night, and there's one point where people lose gravity, and you know, if somebody shoots a gun, they're just going to go firing, you know, shooting back across the room. They're not going to fly forward. I just whapped the doggy cam here. Let's get back on track here. I know everybody. I know what you came here for. You came here to see a dog sleep. That's what we're here for. Come on, we all know what we're here for. So, beep up is that back leg in the shot. There we go. Yeah, a little sleepy doggy. So, okay, yeah, great, excellent. Scott Nesman says, my wall was swirling around, pretty cool. Yeah, that's the non-solidity of those experiences. Rory says that worked. Oh, good. I think you mean that worked to fix the audio. Excellent. Or maybe you mean the optical illusion. I don't know. But anything else? What else is coming up for folks as we're here sliding away? What else came up for folks? No pressure. We can always dissolve our way into the background. We can always wake the dog up and have her fight for her life. No, that's pretty exciting, isn't it? Not that exciting. Okay. What? Yeah. Good doggy. We're actually, as crazy as this sounds, as anyone who knows that it's been like a lot of work to keep this dog. We're thinking about getting a second one, which is like, I partially don't know why we're thinking of that, but partially I'm very excited to get a second one. Okay, so folks, hit me with your reports right away, or I'm going to end this stream. I'm going to turn this stream around right now if you don't give me your reports. Let me know what came up for you, and then we'll transition from there. Yeah, so I just want to go back to some of the things people said, and maybe I think this began to address some of the things people said, but I'm not sure if it did. So one was self-inquiry. So we used a questioning process, and I didn't start out only just sort of pointing back. I started looking at different objects and allowed that you could look at the experience of self if you wanted. That was a possibility, which is typically how we describe self-inquiry. The sense of there's a lot of over there. Somebody asked about that, and the premise being that the mind is producing the sense of over there. So even the sense of over there, to observe that as a kind of object, or the mind solidifying things, is actually shows us that there's no breakdown. The mind sort of producing an inside and outside in this way. We didn't say may you be peaceful, but we did give thanks at the end for the actual the solidity making process. That's what Jean mentioned. Sneaky subjective experiences trying to pose as objective ones. This is pretty literal, where it's like objective meaning they're often built out of objects. Subjective meaning it's a kind of process that's ongoing, that is like we can't actually solidify ourselves around that. And then 2020 CL, are we just representations of ourselves? So the self is another object. I was thinking of self-inquiry could trigger something potentially. When you say notice other objects become less solid, my attention bounces around. So I'd be curious, Exalted, what your sort of end result experience was from that. Okay. How nice it is to stop fighting. Scott Nesbitt says, my wall was swirling. Okay, we got that. I'm trying to think of a response. I may need to write it down. So, Jean, okay, if you don't want to be on the spot, that's fine. Just say, let's talk later. But if you're okay with it, let's do it now, because I'm always like, now is the best time. Describe your objective experience now, phenomenologically. This is basically using the terms of our meditation to describe what's occurring. This is actually very good. If there is any self-consciousness about the stream or about doing this now, because there's a little bit of pressure, describe to me that pressure. Where is it in the body? Maybe how intense is it? We're using relatively objective terms to describe that experience as it's occurring. Is there any clinging there, even subtle clinging? The likelihood is probably to notice where it is. Is it a clinging? Is it an aversion? Is it both? Just describe those sensations just right now. Just start describing as you're typing what's happening. That's what I would suggest. Exalted says, here, I'm just going to have the computer read this.
Sometimes when I ask something like, am I aware, or similar simple things, I instantly jump into the same feeling I have after meditating for like 20 minutes. Why is that?
Certain things are wormholes for certain people. So earlier you asked about, should I use a self-inquiry practice? I would explore that. I don't know, should you? And I think that that is an indication to you that that's a little bit of a wormhole for you. I remember I came back after a retreat once, and I had a very intense experience in the retreat, and I just sort of put my mind into don't know mind, which is just you're looking, but you're sort of like I did before with the color, like, is it that thing? And the mind sort of is in a question rather than a statement. This is another example of the sort of noun nature of the mind. It almost always is looking at things as though it's a statement. You know, this is what it is. Yeah, I got it. It's very like sort of Western, objective, like in a way almost macho, like, yeah, I see it. It is what it is. Versus a kind of a question where it's like, is this what it is? Is this as solid as it seems? Like, is it the color that it seems? Is it, you know, phenomenologically, is it what it seems like it is? Which is just a different position to put the mind in. And so I sat down, and just for 1 second I was in a restaurant, and I like looked over and looked at a menu and just put the mind in a question state, and it pushed me into some very intense territory that lasted for the rest of my life. So there's certain moments when something cracks. So for you, notice that is happening. It doesn't matter, is it good or bad, or will it always happen, or whatever. It is happening now. So follow those little rabbit holes, and then, you know, you can go from there. The question might be less should I than how do I best apply this, or something like that. But just go for it, experiment. From there, 2020 CL says,
I personally think it's a lot to take in that we are not perceiving an unadulterated reality, but the illusion illustrated it great.
Excellent, excellent. I know sometimes those illusions are really silly, but those things are really good examples of how it is not as solid as we think it is. And the mind says it's very, very solid. And I think that's part of the thing, is to look at the illusion of the mind. And this is the big thing, this is one of the big things, is our experiences are not nouns, no matter how much our mind tells us that. They're processes. And one way to crack through that is to watch the mind produce nouns, watch the mind produce solidity, watch it produce this sense of everything is in one place, it's in order, etc. And the reason the optical illusion is a good example of that is because the mind says it's supposed to be like this. I know how things look, there's no question. But if everything looked like that all the time, and when I say, you know, I had a period that after that, it's actually after that moment when I did that in the restaurant, looked at the menu and everything, everything started looking like that for probably 9 months, and everything felt like that. It wasn't just outside, it was internally, like any sense of self, whatever. It's like a lot of like sort of liquidity is what I described it as. And and it was hard for the system to handle, and so that was what I describe as my experience of dark night material. Actually, my not allowing it to be there was my experience of dark night material. Then when I just said this is the new reality, it was fine and easy and cool. So exalted. Oh, sorry. Jean says, definitely a sense of aversion. I just drew in a breath and exhaled like a sigh, and felt some tension in my arms, like pre-fist. Great clarity. Excellent. And just so you know, Jean, that's what I'm looking for in reports, is just a sort of objective. So I can right now, right? So the mind produced the object of the hand in my mind. So I thought of the hand. I saw the color of the hand, which actually I noticed was different than the image. The image was like darker. Now I'm seeing all the different colors and different nuances of color in my visual experience of the hand, the light bouncing off my hand. I'm noticing all the sort of little cracks, the darkness from one to the next. Now I'm noticing the sound of my voice and then the sensation of my voice. My mind just produced an image of the self and imagined it from your perspective, and sort of producing a kind of self-conscious relationship here. I then thought of the camera and how the camera functions, so the sort of little like weird magic blew up in the mind. Again, the sound of my voice. So it's just very objective, sort of like structural pieces that happened throughout. And clinging and aversion is like part of that. So that's excellent. Okay. Exalted says,
for me now it's really easy to very quickly ramp up into a deeper state. All I have to do is stop whatever I'm doing, and it's like I'm already there.
And then you say it's kind of scary because it often happens without my permission. Yeah, and that's part of what we have to do, is we want informed consent before we get into this material, because at some point we don't get to choose anymore. This is just a change in perception. And we have to just be like, okay, this is the shape of things now. This is how things are. I don't really get to choose or pick that my perception is now different. The solidity factor is like dramatically reduced, and that's just the shape of reality going forward. And sometimes things are very solid, and sometimes things are not so much solid. Oh, I'm waking the doggy. This great conundrum that I find myself in all the time is, do I wake the doggy to pet the doggy, or do I just let the doggy sleep? Or will the petting actually help the doggy be comforted and sleep? It's always a conundrum, folks. So lovely as always to be here with you. Right here, right now, what I'm going to do here is make a little wish for you. My wish for you in this particular moment is to notice the solidity of this experience. Notice, even as it changes, the mind chunks it down into little objects. Things that are working, things that are not working, we like, dislike. And this is so the mind can make a little battle, can make a little war within itself, and in that way navigate the world, in that way help us get through the world. It's very generous in a certain way, but it's limiting in another way. So I'm trying to arrange cameras here. Will this work? Oh yeah. Check this out, folks. Forget this cam. Here we go. Let's transition. There we go, folks. Great to see you as always. Lovely to be here with you. It is a delight. Thank you for joining. Say hi, Sheila. Look. Hi. We're very happy you're here with us. We're going to be back here in fewer than 72 hours. Excellent. Good times for everybody. And looking forward to seeing everyone very, very soon. So, folks, as always, have fun. Practice well. Take care of each other. And we will see you all very, very soon. Bye.